Hello, welcome to another Project HBC tutorial. Today we're going to be working with Lightroom, and I'm just going to run through some steps that I usually go through when developing my photos. So first things first, we open Lightroom. I use Lightroom 3. There is more up-to-date versions, but this is my preference. So we click on the bottom left hand corner here, there's a button named Import. Click on this. So at the import screen, we would choose the picture that we're looking for. I know exactly where mine is, but if you want to navigate, it's over here on the left. So once you highlight, check the box of the picture you want to import, and then over on the right, click the import button. So highlight the image and click on the top right hand corner of the screen, develop. Now the image is imported for development. So over here on the right of the screen, there's the menus that we're going to be running through. The first menu is a basic menu. It's kind of a good starting point for your image, so let's start. First thing I'm going to deal with is the exposure, and if you hold down the Alt key and adjust your exposure, it gives you the overexposure areas or the underexposed areas, and you're able to lift it or decrease it with a good view of where the overexposure occurs. So what you want to do is have your screen black with mainly a couple of bits of light poking through, such as that. Yep. And the next stage is to go and do the same with the blacks. If you hold down the Alt key and adjust it accordingly until there's just a couple of blacks coming through. I think that's ideal for this image. It gives you a good range to work within. The image is quite dark, so we're going to add a little fill light here. That'll add a bit of light without creating any overexposed areas. And the recovery here, that adds a little bit of darkness if it's a little too light as well, without changing the blacks. We're going to keep the recovery down at 0. The brightness is fine the way it is just now, but we are going to add a little bit of contrast. Again, this is adjusted taste. Every photo is going to be different, so let's add that up to maybe 30. And we add some presence by increasing the clarity. A little bit of vibrance, but we're going to keep the saturation as it is because there's only real yellows and oranges in this image, and if we increase the saturation, as you'll see, it just goes ridiculous. Right, so that's not what we want, so let's change that to 0. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the tone curve. Here we can increase the highlights a little and reduce the darks a bit. I find that this S curve here is more or less ideal for most images within Lightroom. Okay, so here the next menu is the Hue Saturation and Luminance. As you can see here, it's 3 menus. The saturation here we're not really going to adjust. A trick here would be to click on this icon here, and then when you're in the image you just find the colour that you want to adjust, and then you click on it and then increase it or reduce it. So close that menu up and we'll move on to the detail. The split toning it's worth mentioning. You can change the hue and then you can change the saturation of that hue and balance it in with the shadows and the highlights if you want to, but we're going to leave that today. Detail is definitely worth talking about. As you can see here, the lion's eye, I mean it is quite in focus, but what we'll do is we'll sharpen it up a little, and as you see, when you increase that, there is some noise added to the image. To reduce the noise, we move down to the noise reduction, increase the luminance a little, and move the colour a little bit to the right. That works on the noise that we've created with the sharpening. So next thing we're going to do is move to the lens correction. Now depending on what lens you use, obviously you would more or less use this. I enable the profile corrections because I've used a 50mm prime lens when taking this image, so that's going to adjust the image and any warping that the lens creates. So simply set up that and move on to the effects. The effect we're going to use here is to create a vignette. So to do that we just reduce the amount here by the required amount. I'm going to use maybe between 15 and 20, and that should give us a nice vignette around the image, which is going to take a lot of this down here. You can see the blurring from the glass where I shot this image. That's going to take a bit of that out. And to further reduce that, what we're going to do here is add a graduated filter. So we click on the graduated filter. Now just reduce the exposure and the brightness a little, not too much, and then we bring a filter in here where we can see that the glass has added a little bit of smudge in the image. Now, these filters are adjustable once you add them. It's no problem to turn it off and on just by clicking on this. Okay, so here we see we've added a bit of shadow with the filter, which is perfect. That's increased the vignette shadow as well, which is ideal. Okay, so we're done with the graduated filter, and now we can just check out how the image looks compared to the original just by clicking on this here. So as you can see, we've increased the dynamic range of the picture quite vastly, and now it just looks more alive. The blacks are more black and the colours are more vibrant. So that's basically how I develop my images. Every picture is going to be different, but you just adjust that to taste. So it's been another Project HBC tutorial. Stay tuned.